Hey, everyone, what's going on? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com. We are leaping right into week 3 of the SEC college football season, recapping Alabama, Texas A&M, and our Monday edition of Alabama SEC Insider presented by All South Appliance Group. And joining me now to talk about the Alabama, Texas A&M game that went down in Bryant-Denny Stadium this weekend, the first game in the newly renovated Bryant-Denny Stadium. Michael Casagrande, thank you so much for joining us. Now, were you at the game on Saturday? Did you get to witness and see the newness of the stadium?
I was not. My streak of 100 straight games covering Alabama ended this weekend because of the limited press box space.
Oh, what a bummer! How did you feel about that? Did you have some FOMO? A little bit of FOMO going on? Excuse me?
Very weird. It was bizarre, but it was weird. I didn't like it. It wasn't as fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It just takes me out of your
game day.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. So, that's the new world we live in. But hey, you know what? We are getting through a college football season. 2 games in the book for the SEC. Alabama defeating Texas A&M 52-24. Saban now 20-0 against his former assistants turned head coaches like Jimbo Fisher. I want to just start first and foremost. Obviously, we saw this offense just ignite on so many cylinders. I want to know from you, Michael, and just breaking down the game, how special this offense can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, and it's being compared. It's got such a hard comparison to go to some of the last 2 that were obviously record-breaking, unlike anything Alabama had seen with Tua at quarterback. But they're kind of picking up where they left off with Mac Jones at quarterback. He's been very efficient. I looked at the stats yesterday, and he's quarterbacked 18 possessions so far this year, and 13 of them ended in points. 12 of those were touchdowns. So they've been very efficient moving the ball down the field. The passing game has obviously been a very big part of it on Saturday. I think the 4th best passing performance by a quarterback in Alabama history from Mac Jones. The running game didn't quite get in gear, and Saban after the game was talking about the way that the A&M defended them, really packing the box, trying to stop the run, daring, in a sense, my inference was kind of daring them to throw deep, which they did, and were effective on all of those except for the one pass that Mac Jones came up, overthrew John Mechie by a little bit in the first play of the first possession of the second half. But overall, he's been hitting those deep balls, something I'm going to be writing about this week. He's been very efficient. Devontae Smith, he had the end of the first half after A&M had tied the game. They came down, they scored 3 straight touchdowns. One of them was a defensive touchdown, but the third one to complete the half right before halftime was a well-thrown ball to Devontae Smith. It was his first touchdown of the year. He had been, hitting those deep passes, just unloading, throwing them deep. But this one was a nice touch pass, very nice foot. Devontae Smith getting his foot down, angling it to keep it in bounds, not getting that chalk of the end line, the back line for that touchdown. Just an acrobatic, athletic catch and well-thrown ball. The passing game, everything is working out so far.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, obviously, last week it was Jalen Waddle and then Devontae Smith kind of taking the headlines. And this week, John Mechie the third, 5 catches, 181 yards, 2 deep touchdowns. And so I think when you have a rotation of receivers like that, it doesn't make the running game, quite as blaring, if you will, or quite as, under the radar. And so that kind of brings me to my next question. Najee Harris, he's another guy, that obviously has a lot of talent. We've seen him in the run game, but he also has the ability to be a downfield threat. And you pointed this out in, I guess, one of your articles on AL.com yesterday, kind of breaking down the game, recapping it, that Najee wants to show his abilities in the passing game as well, as he explained to Reggie Bush in an interview. So describe that to me and sort of what we're seeing as Najee as he evolves as an impact player for Alabama.
Yeah, with running backs, a lot of them will catch passes coming out of the backfield, and a lot of them be swing passes, screen passes. They're pretty straightforward. The body's pretty squared to the ball. It's not as difficult of a catch. You're not having to make a receiver type move. And the way he's able to catch the wheel route he caught at the end of the second quarter I believe it was the end of the second. Yeah, it was a setup, that Devontae Smith touchdown. The way he was able to turn his body, he caught the ball like a receiver would, and that's the kind of thing that you don't normally see with running backs. It's the kind of thing that Josh Jacobs. I compared it in the sense that Josh Jacobs was probably the best pass catching downfield threat as a running back. He had a few really great catches in his time. I think the one against Auburn stands out in that Iron Bowl, where Tua threw it to him across the middle. He was able to make that body adjustment in the air that is not necessarily common among running backs. So I think Najee showed that a lot last year, and has continued with that catch on Saturday, continuing to score those 1-2 yard touchdowns. I think he's got 5 touchdowns this season, but he continues to be a threat, even with the way the defenses have tried to stop the running game. I know Ole Miss doesn't necessarily have the same kind of defense coming up on Saturday, but 2 weeks from now, it's not too early to think about what Georgia's going to bring. That's going to be, the game of the year to this point in 2 weeks. So everything kind of all arrows start pointing towards that game, and with the implications of that.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we get to the defensive side of the football, I do want to mention our producer, Patrick, had seen this on Twitter earlier. And so it's definitely worth going and watching. But Matt Rea, he is the director of sports science at Alabama, had tweeted this out this morning. He said his 5 touchdowns in 2 games are impressive, but here's the play that prompted a call from a friend who is an NFL scout. Najee Harris hits his fastest speed of the game at 21.7 miles per hour on the play. And of course, that was the interception that was thrown, and he comes zipping down the field for the the tackle on was it number 8, I guess, that ended up getting tripped up there before he was able to run it back into the end zone. So very impressive. And I think that's what we love about Najee Harris, is just his versatility, and his speed obviously is instrumental for this Alabama football team.
Right. Yeah. And it was a big play. It was a good play in a moment. It was kind of negated on the next throw when A&M scored on the first play of that possession. But it's the kind of thing that NFL guys are looking for, that hustle play, that he wasn't going to quit on the play, even though it looked like he was the intended target of that pass. But the way he was able to track down that defender in traffic, weaving through people, and clip his ankles, because he would have probably easily scored if it wasn't for Najee coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so I want to ask you, Michael, rate the Alabama defensive performance. What did you see from them? I know last week Nick Saban harped on energy. We need to see it for all 60 minutes, all 4 quarters. And I think that we saw some of that, but I still don't think it was up to expectation or up to par. What were your overall thoughts of the defensive performance on Saturday?
Yeah, it was a combination of good and bad. I mean, it's kind of the thing that is unique to Alabama, when you could win a game by that many points and crush an opponent. And there's still so many issues being pointed out with the defense. There were a few missed tackles. I mean, obviously the missed tackle on the first touchdown on the sideline, on the running back catching the pass from Daniel Wright, that was pretty glaring. I mean, other than that, they kept him out. There was the one play touchdown after the interception, but they kept him to shorter drives. No points other than those 14 points in the first half. It was again the second half where things like it was in Missouri. I think A&M was for 7 in the first half on third downs, and then after halftime was an astounding 8 for 10. Kind of a crazy stat to think that they were able to keep converting, moving the ball down the field. Obviously didn't score enough to make it a game, but it was enough to frustrate, I'm sure, people watching, that they were still, weren't able to truly just squash them, stomp them out at the end and kind of finish them off. They just kept on picking up yards. I think it was the second half yardage total ended up 232, 230, A&M having a 2-yard advantage, even though Alabama outscored them. So, it was a mixed bag. The young secondary, they made some big plays. I mean, Daniel Wright made up for that missed tackle and had a pick 6, brought it back for the first defensive touchdown. Malachi Moore, true freshman, had his first interception at the end of the game. So, there were some good. They gave up too many yards. I'm sure 450 is probably a lot more than they were hoping in this kind of game. But it was good enough for this game. It was good enough against A&M. But with some of these offenses that are going to be coming up, it could present more of an issue if there's as much bending in the defense. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things progress, and younger players continue to mature and get more experience.
Yeah, and I think a stat line you had pointed out yesterday that was interesting to me. Alabama's first two opponents have a 20-13 scoring edge in the fourth quarters of games, which are well out of hand. So I think that's exactly what what Saban is talking about, keeping the foot on the gas, seeing that production from the defense. And again, you're bringing in new guys, obviously a young secondary, so those all play into it and factors. But it'll cut it against the Texas A&M. But like you said, when we start getting closer to that matchup against Georgia, things are going to look quite a bit different. Anyways, thank you, Michael. We appreciate you so very much. We'll catch up with you later this week. And of course, we appreciate our sponsor, All South Appliance, proud sponsor of SEC Insider, inviting you to visit us online at myallsouth.com or at any one of our showrooms across Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida.